Hi, this is Arlene, and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Together with me is,
Hi, this is Gowri. Good morning, everybody.
and via Skype is,
Asmod.
yes,
I'm very on Asmod, yeah.
yeah. So the three of us, the presenters of Durian ASEAN, we would love to wish you Selamat Hari Raya first. This today is like the third or fourth. Today is the fourth day of Hari Raya, isn't it?
I didn't know there were 4 days to Raya. I thought it was just two
actually,
days.
there's a month to Raya. I mean, for the Muslim days, at least in the ones in Malaysia, we celebrate Hari Raya for the whole 1 month. But anyway, I'm talking about Raya. While things are happening, I think like peacefully joyous in the land of Malaysia. But when it comes to Africa right now, they are facing a terrible situation. In fact, it is considered like the deadliest Ebola outbreak in history by thevox.com. So apparently in Africa, there's a disease, an Ebola outbreak. Is it a pandemic or endemic? Of a pandemic, or I'm not sure whether it's a pandemic or endemic of Ebola outbreak, but apparently it's spreading like really fast and really widespread in the whole of Western of Africa, and apparently also scientists and volunteers and all that, they are pulling it really hard to ensure that there's some sort of damage control happening in Africa. So aptly today we are going to discuss, the three of us, about the Ebola outbreak. With all these wars happening in eastern Ukraine and in Gaza, I think the worst situation to come towards humanity, which is a disease outbreak, and apparently happening in Africa as well, is not being highlighted well. And because of that, I think it's aptly that all of us discuss about this. So to start out, maybe Asmod, you can give some sort of context to our discussion today.
Sure. So I think it's an epidemic now.
Mm-hmm.
So what's epidemic is like it's an outbreak of disease, that has the potential to spread to many people,
Mm-hmm.
and it has the potential of being pandemic, meaning
Mm-hmm.
spreading throughout the world.
That's the thing. Like
Uh,
it's now like going towards pandemic. It seems like.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, like stall, like say, it's caused by Ebola virus, and rather than going into details of what actually, the virus is made of, let's say, like, I think it first started, like, it was first noted in 1978, although the virus might have existed, before,
Mm-hmm.
and actually caused some deaths in Central Africa even then. Uh, and like, more than 400 people were killed in 1976, according to data that BBC has provided.
Mm-hmm.
But from like say 1978 to like 2013, it wasn't in the scale that it existed now, and like between like 1980, 1990, there are almost no reported deaths.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly in 2014, you see this upsurge in deaths, especially in West Africa, in countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and the virus has been like so infectious now
Mm-hmm.
that more than 600 people have been killed.
It could
Uh,
be the worst since Black Death, in the 18th or 17th century in Europe.
not sure, like, how many people were killed in that Black Death,
Mm-hmm.
but what's particularly interesting about this virus and the story is, like, it not just spreads from animals to humans. Say the so-called fruit bat is the main carrier here, and once you get that virus, like, you might feel like vomiting, slight headache, and internal external bleeding. But say even like the danger is not so like is like as much as it as from the animals themselves, so much is it from the humans. Like once you get in touch with like humans, their fluids, body fluids, uh, and even like there have been stories where people who were attending the funeral ceremonies of their beloved ones have caught the disease themselves,
Mm-hmm.
have caught the virus,
Mm-hmm.
and even a prominent doctor now, who has been, trying to treat the patients, have been killed himself.
Oh, really?
I think it was in one of the African countries. I don't know. I forgot exactly which one. So this and like what makes it deadly is like you don't have a cure for it. So once you get it, like you can take preventive measures, or like once you get it, you can hope for early intervention and treatment, so that like you can be one of the 5% of the people who actually survive once this deadly strain attacks you.
I just want to give an explanation about the Black Death that I mentioned earlier, which actually I was wrong. Is in the year in the 14th century, not 17th, but it apparently is the most devastating pandemic in human history, resulting in the death of estimation up to 200 million people in Europe itself, and the Black Death is actually indicates that the pathogen responsible was the Yersinia pestis bacterium, probably causing several forms of plague. But in the case of Ebola viruses, what I'm reading now, apparently the deadliest type of Ebola virus, there are several of it, and average death rates from the 5 types of Ebola viruses, depending on their their the level of their danger level is, I think the worst is 68% for Zaire Ebola virus, and there's also 53% for Sudan Ebola virus, and 27 for the Bundi-Bugya Ebola virus. So not all viruses are the same. As happen often with viruses, close relatives can have very different effects. So the current Ebola outbreak is unfortunately the Zaire Ebola virus species, which is the one that I quoted. 68% of dead viruses will cause death to anyone who contract to it, and the one has historically had the highest death also, which is the Zaire Ebola virus, among the other types that I mentioned just now. And the species was named after Zaire, where it was founded in 1976. Zaire is now renamed as the Democratic Republic of Congo. And Gowri, what do you think of this Ebola virus that is currently, I know, widespreading like wildfire in Africa?
I think I want to talk about some of the symptoms of this virus, and this is. It seems that it starts abruptly with a sudden onset of influenza-like stage by general malaise, fever with chills. You get sore throat, you get severe headache, you have joint pain, muscle pain, chest pain, and it also affects your respiratory tract, and characterized by pharyngitis with sore throat, cough, dyspnea, and also hiccups. So you have to be careful now when you get hiccups.
I always get hiccups.
Yeah, you just got it a few days ago. And other symptoms also include agitation, confusion, or fatigue, seizures, and sometimes even coma. And the transmission of this virus is mainly from human to human via contact, or you can also be infected through animals' bodily fluids. So human to human transmission would be like blood or other bodily fluids when you are doing probably like medical things like a blood transplant or something. And a lot of these medical workers who do not wear protective clothing such as gloves and surgical masks are also susceptible to this disease.
So it's actually spread through exposure to bodily fluids.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like if you have open wounds. What about if you have like, if you just touch the person, will you contract Ebola?
I don't think if you touch the person you get it. Probably some kind of a contact, especially when you sneeze or cough and you're not wearing a mask or something to contain the virus within yourself.
Or say like even during a normal day, we all sweat. And say these African countries where the places where the outbreak has happened, they lie just below the Saharan region. So I'm assuming the climate is a bit tropical, a bit humid, if not humid, like very warm at least. So people might sweat, and like it's also a form of body fluid. So if people get in touch with each other, right, like while they're sweating, you might pat a friend on the back, just say hi, shake hands.
Mm.
That's also dangerous, apparently.
So
Well,
I think Arlene has mentioned the average death rate, talking about the five different countries. And so the World Health Organization and the US Centers for Disease Control have both said that the risk of Ebola, uh, that the possibility of it spreading beyond West Africa is extremely low because the virus is difficult to transmit, according to George Hartle, who is the World Health Organization spokesperson. And he also said that yes, if this was there was this case of a person with Ebola going to Nigeria on a plane, but in all history, only one or two people with Ebola ever got on the plane. But this is still something that is very worrying, especially with people wondering if it will uh, go to the US or even spread to other parts of Asia.
But I just want to give a context to
Mm.
what is the death toll right now as of July 23rd in West Africa is 672 people. As much as we might be comforted by the idea that we are a wealthy country, we might not be able to contract these kind of like diseases. It only happen in Africa. Possibility of having it here is very low. But then at the same time, you would never know because uh, with air travel as common as it is, borders don't matter anymore. It means that all that much when it comes to disease is entirely possible, though by no means certain. I mean, you still remember the H1N1
Mm-hmm.
flu that
Mm-hmm.
happened in Asia, including Malaysia. At one point, it just, it started off just one case somewhere in East Asia, and then just widespread within like a couple of months to all the different countries, including Western countries. And that is made possible because of air travel.
And I think so far there has been 844 cases, as reported by NPR.org.
As in today, I mean the date that they reported.
The date is, just give
I
me a
guess the one that I
second.
got is a bit later, which is on July 23rd.
Oh, okay. I think yours is probably more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that it is, they call it a nasty, fatal form of hemorrhagic fever, and that it
Wow,
got its.
that's a word. You can make a movie out of that word.
That's right. And each of it is like what you mentioned, the different types of the Ebola species is actually associated with different mortality rate, and it still says that it can actually also be infected through saliva, actually, even if you're kissing a person, or like through urine and stool as well. So I guess you also have to be careful when you go to public toilets and all now.
Definitely.
I'm also concerned, say, like, so this, the outbreak is one of his worst case in, say, Liberia, and I read news that like the president has ordered shutdown of schools to tackle the outbreak. That's what BBC writes. So when countries like, say, like many countries in Africa, as has been the case, like happen to face this outbreak, yeah, there are human costs to it, but there's also like huge economic and social costs. Say like you can gather with your friends, have a normal time. You can't go to school, you miss so much. Your country also loses a lot. Just seeing the opportunity cost that the virus has brought along with it, it's just interesting to observe that.
Yeah, and I wanna highlight what was being spoken by the global medical charity Doctors Without Borders, and in fact they have been giving warnings that the Ebola crisis in West Africa is unpredictable and could spread across the world if we don't took steps to prevent its spreads. And they also say that um, warned that there was no overarching vision of how to tackle the the spread of the the epidemic, because it can only get worse, and it is now still spreading, above all in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and they are extremely worried in terms of the event, particularly in these two countries where there is lack of visible health facilities to improve the outbreak from spreading even quicker, even faster. So there's a huge risk that other new countries will be affected as well.
And like if countries don't act soon enough, like it's only going to be a matter of time, like when it's gonna like spread it to other countries.
Oh yeah, that's true. And in fact, just to let you know that other wealthy countries such as Europe, for example, have already given their pledge and also money. As of for now, what I'm getting the numbers is the EU is allocating an extra 2.7 million US dollar to fight the outbreak, bringing a total fund of 5.2 million, including from other funding sources as well. But one of the interesting point that I think I want to highlight is the discussion of this Ebola outbreak has not been as sensationalized compared to probably the war in Gaza or in eastern Ukraine, when it comes to the context of Southeast Asia. Did you also felt the same way as well?
Yeah, looking through the news, because I think this is mostly because right now it's still focused in Africa, especially in West Africa, and the African people are, yes, of course, making a big deal about it. And there have been some news I looked up this morning that people in Asia are worried, but it's definitely not something that has been highlighted. There has been nothing saying that we on this side of the world should be taking any precautions and whatnot. But there was another news this morning saying that we are, however, susceptible to this new malaria that is being resistant to the existing malaria drug. So I guess we are more concerned about that one for now, as opposed to the Ebola.
From what I see right now, even when I open the Star, what I can see when it comes to like international news, the issue of West Africa is not really being much highlighted compared to other international news in our local daily.
And like what Asmod and you mentioned just now, right now Liberia is really affected by this disease, and schools have been closing down, and they are putting people under quarantine. And also, I think reported this morning that they have been sending people to all these care centers to treat this patient. But some of them who actually went to treat the patient also contracted the disease and they died. So they're trying to limit the amount of people that they're sending in to actually to help the victims of Ebola.
Yeah, that's true. And guess what? The U.S. Peace Corps also has withdrew their mission from West Africa over the Ebola fears, because it's just widespreading. Like even Asmod say, doctors are being contracting it, and also had died over it as well. So for NGOs, especially Western NGOs, I think they are really, really scared that it will affect their staff as well.
And like for now, there is no vaccine or cure. I think Asmod mentioned that as well. So the best that they can do right now is just quarantine these patients in isolated wards, just to prevent the spreading of the virus. And doctors are assigned to these people, but at the same time there are not enough doctors. One doctor has to treat up to 20 patients, because the quota is actually 1 to 20. And the patients will be declared Ebola free, however, if they don't show any symptoms for several days and after repeated tests for the Ebola virus in their bloodstream. But this virus can actually linger in the semen for months, and for a shorter time as well in breast milk, as the antibodies don't reach those areas really. So
if it affects the sexual lives of an individual, I think it is even more dangerous. That means it's similar to HIV. Like the moment you have
Mm-hmm.
sex, your partner or whoever that you have sex with could contract it,
Mm-hmm. There is
immediately.
a high possibility.
Mhm.
And so these men who recover, they are actually given condoms
Mhm.
because the virus can still stay in there, and the next time they have sex for for months, like for the next 4 or 5 months, their partner can still contract it.
Mhm. Anyway, we will continue our discussion. Just a short break. Later on, Gowri will share more about her her findings on the Ebola
It's a good
outbreak.
thing you didn't say her experience.
Okay.
Voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
You're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing, and also with us together is.
Your intern, Asmod.
Okay. Anyway, we will continue our discussion on the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. So we had a actually off-air discussion about the outbreak on why it is not being properly highlighted in the local news, in the international news as well. In fact, the situation right now is like, oh, there's very low risk that the Ebola will spread to other wealthy nations or other nations, let's say in Southeast Asia as well. So to other people, it's like, oh, it will just be an endemic that would probably be happening in West Africa. That's it. But to us here, we felt that there should be greater highlight on the issue itself, because first of all, nobody knows what is the Ebola virus at all, and secondly, I think at the same time we also realize that a lot of humanitarian missions have been pulling off their um, workers and staff from the area there. So it seems like it is not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse, as being reported in Al Jazeera on the comments of Doctors Without Borders. So in my own view, I think like we should put more highlight on why this Ebola outbreak is getting worse. But for you, Asma, what is your view on this?
Uh, I think it's a complex issue to address. Like, why aren't we bringing out this news about Ebola? Say, the news in Gaza is something that's caused because of governments, like human institutions in place, and the shellings and the bombings and the casualties in Gaza is something that is preventable if we take measures against it. Say, why do we report news if an airline with 200 people crash? Versus, like, if 600 people die in the world, why aren't so many people aware of it? Because some of the crash that has happened recently, we know, or like we speculate that is because of human errors, like mistakes that human have made. Versus Ebola, yeah, like is we like people first got it when they had meat, like bats meat, but still, like, it's something that out in the nature and you can't necessarily control. You can't necessarily know like how you're going to contract it, or like you can take preventive measures, but there's only so much you can do to take the situations in your hand.
So speaking of preventive measures, maybe I just want to go through a little article that I found here. And it seems that some of the things that you can do is wearing of protective clothing, such as mask, gloves, even goggles, especially when you're in the hospital. You really have to take care not to touch anything, or especially when you're sitting close to a patient, or what, when the person is coughing or sneezing. And others is the use of infection control measures, such as the complete equipment sterilization and the routine use of disinfectants. So I guess all these hand sanitizers and all can actually play a key role now in keeping your hands clean, and keeping maybe also using like a mask to
But
cover.
what if one of your family member have Ebola? Like, what kind of measures you can take to ensure that you still care for the patient, your family member. At the same time, you try to prevent other people from contracting it as well.
From what I have here is they say that the best that you can do is probably have that person isolated, and when you are visiting them, you wear these protective gowns and mask and gloves and goggles. You need to have complete protection, something pretty much like an astronaut. Actually, you need to cover
see.
from head to toe because it's very easily transmissible, and I guess that's the best that you can do. And it's isolation seems to be the key prevention measure here.
So I guess in a way, the people of who have this Ebola should be treated with compassion and not criminalize them and just simply isolate them. I think they need some care and some sort of people to sympathize with whatever their situation they are facing right now.
But it's probably best that like a doctor do it instead, because if you're just gonna go in there, you're probably going to get infected as well, as much as you care for that person. So I think it's best to leave it to the medical workers and all to handle it, because they have the proper equipment and the protective clothing to keep them safe.
Well, there's this view which is totally against your view. His
Uh-huh.
name is Mike Noyes. He's the head of humanitarian response at Asian Aid UK. He said that enforcing isolation of a whole community is a medieval approach to controlling the spread of disease. And he also added that some airlines in the region have cut routes to countries affected to Ebola, even as the WHO is saying that it does not recommend travel restrictions as a step to control outbreaks.
Although, like, I think I agree with some of the issues that he mentioned, that sometimes we tend to overreact to situations. Like, just take very many steps back and say like, hey, I'm going to be very safe against it. Yeah, like that's not necessarily something we want to do. But say, of course, like if a person from my family is infected, probably, I want to be near that person, give him or her decent care. But if I don't take necessary preventive measures, I'd be a carrier myself. What that means is I'd be a potential risk to so many people who might interact on a day-to-day basis. So my giving care to a certain individual in a certain form might actually be a huge threat to other people instead. So, of course, isolation to a whole country or a community might not be the best way, but at times, you can see, yeah, there's a humanitarian side to it. But I think you have to acknowledge the practicalities also at times.
And like you mentioned earlier, actually there are dozens of local health workers, including the Sierra Leone and Liberia's leading two Ebola doctors, have died of the Ebola by the Ebola viruses while treating patients. So in a way, it's like a chicken and egg thing. Like, should I do this or should I not do this? But I mean, if you isolate them, you're actually trying to make a point that, hey, you are someone that we don't want to be associated with. But then if you don't isolate them, at the same time you have the risk of getting the staff and the people who are healthy get infected by the disease or the virus, and at the end die out of this.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I want to add one more point for Mike Noyes, who said who sort of said that we shouldn't isolate people, because he actually mentioned about this one protest happening at one small area, probably in Liberia, by the local community against the construction of an isolation unit at Elua Hospital, which, because of the protest, they have ended they have ended the idea of having the isolation unit. So apparently now everyone is being treated in the same hospital. There's no isolation unit. And for those who have the disease, they can stay at home and only they can continue work after they are found to be healthy.
Yeah, so what this reminds me and his argument reminds me is of like, say if someone has taken any first aid training, I did one couple months back, and one of the first things that you learn to do is like, say if you encounter someone who needs first aid treatment or who has been wounded, you first take care of like it's called syncyser out in the wilderness, and what that means is you first make sure that you as a first aid care provider are safe to continue with the treatment, because if you aren't safe yourself personally, if there's some hazard to the environment from the person, like you don't care for that and you wait until you get the proper response, because you are going to be a part of the problem if you are not going to solve it, and if you don't have the enough means and resources to do that. And so the doctor's argument and people like I very much empathize with them, but at the same time say if you stay in a home like which and most of us our home aren't necessarily designed to be quarantined, use towels, like use the same facilities as other members do. I personally not want to put risk to my family members, by using the same equipments as they do. Even though that might be painful at times, but that's something necessary I'd probably take just to be cautious.
Mm-hmm. And apparently schools are closed. All schools are closed in Liberia, and also apparently they have communities quarantined in different areas where there's a high risk of people contracting or have been contracted the virus.
And I just want to talk about a treatment that I found here. So of course, there is no cure, but the kind of treatment they are using is more supportive therapy. And right now, they are focusing on balancing the patient's fluids and maintaining their oxygen status, and also maintaining their blood pressure, and at the same time carrying repeated blood tests to see that they are not suffering from any other complicated infections or any other dangerous virus as well. And also, a lot of this, the main problem with this Ebola hemorrhagic fever is that the symptoms are just fever and headache, which is very common. So most people just brush it off as it's nothing until it becomes really serious, and even the doctors can misdiagnose it at times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talking about diagnosis, I was reading that say like just to diagnose Ebola, you'd have to first like be sure that it's not any other range of disease, say malaria or dengue or bunch of things, because the symptoms are very similar. Like you have fever, headache, muscular spasm, some like symptoms of common cold. So even the diagnosis might, people might mistake it for like say just any other common day-to-day disease and might not necessarily take preventive measures against it at times.
So apparently also, I just want to talk about other countries that might contract the Ebola disease if they have flights, flying over flying through the countries that are affected. And apparently there are 35 countries which have direct flight from these Ebola affected countries, and some of them are African, but some of them are Western countries like the US, the European countries, as well as the Middle East, and also Turkey as well. In a sense that it could become widespread, from what I see via air travel.
I think I have an interview here regarding air travel, where they ask how are flight bans likely to impact on those countries where Ebola cases have been confirmed. And according to Manji Cheto, who is the Vice President of Teneo Intelligence, which is a London-based risk analysis organization, he said that it is a huge concern for a lot of these countries especially at a time when African economies are looking up and all. But they've been seeing a major push by these airlines to actually move into Africa to capitalize on the increasing investment and trade flows. Um, but he said that this it is a concern, and they are looking at a regional outbreak, and there have been effort to implement all these flight bans, and just like all the way back in March when the first regional outbreak was there. But he thinks that these flight bans are probably driven by more of a political consideration and financial consideration on part of the airlines, because you need to let your other customers feel safe when they're traveling your airline.
Mm-hmm. And I want to highlight the hospitals that is currently, housing all these Ebola affected victims and patients. Apparently, um, a hospital like Monrovia is running out of hospital spaces because more and more people are contracting Ebola, and it's impossible to even isolate them as well. And remember the two infamous the two famous doctors, which is the region's top Ebola doctors, Dr. Sierra Leone's Dr. Sheikh Umar Khan, and also Liberia's Dr. Samuel Brisbane. They all, both of them died because of contracting these diseases during treatment. And these doctors, the two person that I name, for example, Sheikh Umar Khan, he was credited with treating more than 100 patients which was infected with Ebola this month, has been moved to a treatment ward run by medical charity Medicines Sans Frontier in the far north of the east. He also died because of that. And also, another one that I mentioned, Samuel, he's also a top doctor who have done a lot of treatments and also discovery on these viruses in Liberia. Also died recently. So it's pretty sad that we have really really good doctors who are trying their best to help this patient, and at the end of the day, their life are lost.
And another interesting perspective by Manji Cheto when they asked him about is there anything that we can do? And he said the first thing to do is education and public awareness, because when this virus was first started spreading, people didn't take it seriously, and also for religious reasons, they thought that I could just go to a church or a mosque and I will be fine, like they can help me cure this thing, and they didn't take it seriously. And he said that's the problem with this underdeveloped countries, because they don't think that this is something serious, something that I need to go to the doctor and get it checked. They think that I can just go and pray and I will heal, and which is not a problem in like developed countries. So according to him, in which I agree as well, that the best way to go about addressing this is definitely through awareness and education for the future, of course, to prevent outbreaks like this.
Asmod, do you have anything that you want to share with us?
No, it's probably like I'm looking at even a larger picture. Say, the more we use, like we encroach upon, like, human settlements expand, and we try to, like, come up with drugs that are resistant to some of the, carriers or like viruses that's out there. I don't know if actually there are some treatments against it, but what I'm basically saying is this virus is also mutate, and over time, like, we need to develop stronger and stronger drugs and like methods to prevent against them. So it might be helpful to look at the bigger picture and what's actually happening as we human try to coexist with our nature and we intrude upon them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my afterthought on this is I think the world, not just in some of the Western world, but also and African countries, but also I think in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, I think we need more education on Ebola, and we need more support, especially at the governmental level, towards these Western African countries. At least some sort of like funding support, or sending specialists there. I think it's important, or even educate our citizens on these dangerous uh, infectious viruses. I think at the end of the day, if we can save as many lives as possible, that is the most important thing. So,
Hmm.
mhm. So anyway, that's all from us. This is me, Arlene, signing off.
This is Gowri.
And as you this is Asmod.
Yeah, and for all of you, if you want to follow us and follow the news on this Ebola outbreak, you can always go to our Facebook, Twitter, as well as listen to us at YouTube for our podcast.
Yeah, and also you can download our TuneIn. It's not our TuneIn app. It is a TuneIn radio app, but you can search for DurianASEAN.com, and you can listen to us live from your smartphone. So we'll see you again tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Bye bye.